How's it going, everybody? This is Eliot from the Primal Reset podcast, the podcast that uncovers the latest trends, science-backed strategies, and practices that are shaping our health and wellness industry. Today, we're talking to Andrew Wade. He's a registered dietitian and the founder of Case-Specific Nutrition. He'll be sharing his expert knowledge about personalized nutrition, holistic wellness, and how tailored health strategies can transform lives. So grab your coffee and let's go. Hey, Andrew. It's nice to have you on the show today. How are you doing?
Thanks for having me. Doing really well. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. So, Specific Nutrition, your company actually just recently hit the milestone of 11 years. That's very impressive. Walk me through your journey. Make it a quick, 60 to 2 minute long. Walk us through that long journey of 11 years.
I appreciate the constraint because I could definitely go on for a while if you wanted to jam in 11 years. We are a dietitian private practice as a core focus of what we do. And honestly, I started the business as a young, hungry professional that just wanted to help people. And so I started a solo practice. Initially, it was cash only. Insurance started to become a reality. Dietitians became medical specialists and were able to bill insurance. So I then shifted and focused on building that out. I found that at kind of a sweet spot where I was 22 or 23 years old, was, still living broke. And so it was easy to learn to bill and all of those things. Ended up kind of writing the book on that. And then over time started to shift towards, man, I want to help more people. So you start hiring, you start expanding in those ways, start trying to create new content and capture people in new ways, whether it be corporate wellness or, podcasts or written material. And then you start working on locations and you start working on models across state lines, and boom, 11 years later, you have 10 locations and about 30 dietitians and a couple chefs and a couple health coaches and a couple trainers and a wellness arm. And you're about to launch a dietitian specific course. And so, I guess if you do something for 4,000 days, it's bound to show up as something at some point, right? There we go.
It's an inspiring story. I mean, I think the statistic is 90% or 99% or something of businesses within the first year end up failing. And so for any business to really pass that first year mark, I mean, and for 11 years, and it's incredible what you're doing for the community. And I know you're in Pennsylvania, but you have so many stores, like you said, and from what we spoke about before, you're trying to get into Tampa now and a couple of different states. Walk me through that. What was through your entire journey, just on the start of it, walk me through how do we expand? How are we using that passion to help people to get into multiple stores? And insurance definitely helped, I'm sure. But
no doubt.
How are we getting into multiple stores? What are we really doing for people? Is it just the nutrition side? Is it the physical therapist side? What is it? How are we getting into different states? And what states do we want to get into?
Fantastic question. I'll zoom out first and say that I think there's sort of two main thoughts that come to mind of like, how did we do this? One of them I stole, and I'll give credit to Simon Sinek. He has a book called The Infinite Game, where he talks about the infinite mindset. And the idea of the infinite mindset, if I was going to sum it up in a sentence, is to realize that the goal of the game isn't to win, it's to keep playing. And so I think what a lot of business owners do wrong is they go into business to try and win. But what does win mean? That it means that there's a finish line, so there's an end to it. And really the goal of business is to keep playing. And so if you adopt that mindset of we're going to keep playing, you then start asking the right questions, which is, well, how can we keep playing? I then bundled that with a phraseology that was a mentor of mine from years ago that stated a very common statement, which is that income follows impact. And it's that drive that, are you an income first business? Are you in business just to make money? Or are you an impact first business? And I'm not delusional. All businesses need to make money. There is an income drive behind all of them. But what is the core notion? Did you go into business for the dollar and then you've just found the way to make the impact? Or did you find a way to make an impact and now you're getting better and better at making that impact to the tune of dollars? So what comes first? And I would argue that we have been a genuine impact-based business from day one. And so the infinite mindset and the impact mindset drives a similar question, which is, how do we help more people? How do we get better? And so you naturally then start to come across barriers to entry insurance definitely helps, but what about the people that don't have great insurance coverage? What about Medicaid and Medicare populations? What about low income populations that don't even know really what kind of access they could have? Those things all vary across state lines. How do you scale something like this so it isn't just a local business, but is something that could actually become an actual real presence from a national perspective? These questions come from that infinite game and that impact mind. But something that you and I have talked about, in past times we've interacted is, for me, it became an evolution, realizing that it started as wanting to help people by being a dietitian. And then it was wanting to help more dietitians do what I do because of how much I loved my career. And then it became spending so much time with practitioners and clients and realizing how broken our medical model was. We had this biomedical model that's really good for acute issues, but it's being burdened by chronic and lifestyle issues that it's not really designed to solve. And there's practitioners like me, charismatic, happy, passionate people in probably every city in the US, but they don't talk to each other. They're not coordinated. They're not collaborated. And there's no systemic flow, which means the biomedical model can't refer to this proactive model because it hasn't been terraformed. And so as I grew through my career, that started to become my bigger calling. And for me personally, I believe dietitians are the practitioner that can walk that bridge between biomedical acute care and really be the quarterback for lifestyle. And so working with dietitians and seeing the role we play in people's lives in medicine and in wellness, it was, okay, how do I bottle this up? And again, the tough questions: how do you cross state lines? How do you improve access to various populations so that you can genuinely meet people where they are, whether physical, financial, or any other demographic in mind? And so that's been the workshopping of the last decade. And to your point, we opened a location in Raleigh about 2 years ago, North Carolina. So while most of our offices are up here in Pittsburgh area, Western Pennsylvania, we did branch out to a couple places in other parts of PA. So we kind of left our little, we'll call it our little bubble, and worked on our marketing strategies in the same state with similar policies. And then we opened a Raleigh location to really practice that out of state. What does that look like? What are the barriers? How can we learn to do this better? And here we have, in a month, we're going to be launching our Tampa location, so our first Florida location. And our hope really is to use Raleigh and Tampa as those first big flags out of state to really grow those, iterate those, become efficient. It's going to show us our growing pains in our systems, and we're going to then get better and better at our systems. And hopefully we'll be able to help more dietitians in other states from our knowledge, and then also utilize our systems to expand more efficiently and effectively in years ahead.
I mean, what an answer, right? Starting with Simon Sinek, and I mean, he's a phenomenal speaker, entrepreneur. I mean, the list goes forever. The guy is phenomenal. And I think, to your point, a lot of people that get into business is looking for money, and that's not the approach, like you said, that it should be. And having that passion, I think, is what helped you drive that 11 years, and being in multiple locations in Pennsylvania and being in Raleigh and now starting in Tampa as well soon. I think it's that drive of trying to help people is something that, if you can serve, that's where, financially it'll come. But if you can serve, that's the betterment of other people's lives, the betterment of your life. And then financially you receive that gain as well. But that's the whole idea in the whole business world aspect. Yeah. And I love that about you and your company. You're very passionate about what you've talked about. I mean, in the whole nutrition side, and I know that's something big for me personally. Playing hockey way back when, we had nutritionists and dietitians with us as well. I didn't like it for most of the time, to be honest with you. A lot of it was chicken and rice. That was kind of our staple meal, but a lot of vegetables and a lot of fruits kind of adding along into that, and when to eat, when to have certain foods, how much carbs, and counting all your macros and all of that. So I definitely understand that world. It's not my favorite. I try to eat the same thing every day so I don't have to change anything and get all the nutrition I need. But for people out there that are looking for how to feel better and how to look better, really, what would your advice be? And a quick, a very simplified advice on how they should start their nutrition journey?
That's a great question. The most dominant thing I'll say is that make sure you're not majoring in minor things. And so when it comes to health and wellness, we'll pick a number, but somewhere around 90% of it is consistency of eating and consistency of moving, right? And it's that top level, right? The people get lost in these details of like, well, what's the perfect way to eat? And should I do cardio or should I lift weights? You know, should I go keto or should I go vegan? Like they get lost in these extremes. If you can focus on really consistent food flow, eating pattern, appropriate protein, lots of fiber. I always say protein and produce at every meal. A protein, a fruit, or a vegetable, or both at every meal. Some carbs with that, some fats with that. At that point, the ratio of carbs and fats is kind of unnecessary for most people. There are people that are ready for the 5% or even the 1% information. But most people in our society, when we're talking about why we have such chronic disease, is the average American eats a vegetable once a week. So we're not even doing the basics right now. And so helping people get better at the basics, not be so picky about how they're moving and not feel the need to split hairs about how they're moving, having people prioritizing protein and produce at meals and getting better at making those things not just nutritious, but also delicious, right? That's the way a dietitian would challenge you is, I don't really care if you're eating chicken and broccoli every day, but can we do some things that change it up? Can we put it in an air fryer one day so it's crispy? Can we stir fry it or saute it or drop it in some broth one day so it's more of a soup? Can we make some sort of taco one day? Like, can we make the food delicious and nutritious? If you're only eating food that's delicious, you're doing it wrong. If you're only eating food that's nutritious, you're also doing it wrong. So delicious and nutritious, pairing protein and produce with the favorite things that you love, those little simple nudges are literally 90% of the battle. The rest of it is little knobs to turn for performance or for individual goals or based on personal medical realities. But until you're doing those basic things, that's not really the conversation to have. And you see that a lot. You get doctors and other professionals out there, particularly on social media, and they're touting some extreme thing. And it's so far removed from the core needs of most people that it just comes off as detached. As somebody that's met with over 15,000 patients in my career, like, you aren't talking to the right people. Like you're talking to this small group of highly motivated individuals that are scientifically inclined and guinea pigs. And believe me, I love to nerd out about that. But when you're talking about how do you change the health of the masses, it's helping them get better at the basics. It's the boring thing. It's probably why I won't be some billionaire founder of some fad diet, because I'm here to preach the boring stuff and make it less boring. Yeah. Yeah. Bachelor mode, dude. That's what that is. Yeah. And to be fair, that's a preference, and that's fine. Now I will tell you, if you and I spend some time in session together, I'd be able to make food more delicious for you without any extra work. Because that's the thing, is there's this story that it needs to be extreme. But like, I'm a big fan, for example, instead of meal prepping, meat prepping. So like, cook your meat on a Sunday. When you cook your meat on a Sunday, every meal is 10 minutes away. Instead of cooking from scratch, it's 45 minutes, right? So you do probably what we'd call meal prepping. You make everything in advance. Well, what if you did the meat prep, for example, and then you had some high fiber wraps and you had some rice made and you had some broccoli and you had some green beans and maybe you had some ready-made salads, just as an example. Well, that same chicken could go on top of a salad one day. It could go in a wrap one day with some spinach and some other stuff that you want, maybe a light mayo or some sort of mustard. And then one day or 2 days, you could have the chicken and rice. And none of those things take more pans, take more pots, take more time. And so there are little nudges. And what I'd invite you to think about is there's a spectrum, right? You can go from like hyper efficient, same food, same plate, same fork every day, all the time. Or you could be cooking from scratch 3 times a day. There's a whole lot of in between there. And so I don't need you to live here, but what would this look like for you, right?
Yeah.
One last thing I'll say to you quick. You're somebody that I would challenge to go sauce shopping. So I'd say
sauce shopping.
Sauce shopping, yeah. So
sauce shopping.
Sauce. Okay. Sorry, it's a hard word to say say on camera. And just for fun, say you're chatting with somebody. Make it a date night. Go to the grocery store on a Friday, one of those real big bougie grocery stores, right? And go into the like ethnic foods aisles where they have all the different sauces. Find 5 sauces under 30 calories a serving. Now, all of a sudden, even if you're eating chicken, rice, and broccoli every day, there's a different sauce to put on top. And it will completely change the flavor, right? If you do a light sugar teriyaki sauce one day, and then you do a hot sauce one day, and then you do some sort of honey mustard one day, those are three very different tastes, and they completely change the palate of the meal. And so those are examples of how you can invite variety without excess. That's the fun part. That's getting to play in the interaction. The difference between somebody following some rigid templated diet fad versus somebody learning how to navigate their reality.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's great advice. And then I know it's great advice for me. It's probably great advice for a lot of people out there as well. One thing that I wanted to ask you about quickly, just because ended up curious in it and I decided to start it as well. I was on the chicken and rice train for probably 6 years or so while playing hockey. And now I saw a little bit about from those influencers you mentioned earlier, the carnivore diet. So I kind of decided to put that to the test. A lot of steak, a lot of ground beef as well. Give me a quick 60-second what your opinion about that is.
Yeah, the carnivore diet it's something that's interesting in the lab that extrapolates poorly. And so what I mean by that is you get, the carnivore influencers, a lot of them are people that have looked at some short-term research of what happens when you go from a standard American diet, highly inflammatory diet, to a carnivore diet, which is going to be no processed foods. And in the short term, you're going to have a fairly acute reduction in inflammation. You're also lacking carbohydrates, so you're going to flush out all of your glycogen stores. As a result of flushing out your glycogen, which is your carb stores in your muscles, you are going to tap into ketones and you're going to start using fat as energy. But in carnivore, most carnivore people don't eat enough fat, so then they end up using protein as energy. Protein is like the backup storage. Think of like if your power went out and you had like a storage unit kind of thing, like a generator. Protein is not meant to be used as energy, but it can be in a pinch. In the short term, this is going to lead to reduced leptin and insulin, which are hormones that, again, can cause a metabolic reset. And the short term, a lot of people feel really good. What ends up happening, though, is as you live on your backup generator longer and longer, your body starts to think it's starving. So it starts to batten down the hatches of metabolism. It starts to slow you down. And so you end up seeing these short-term studies of 4, 6, 8 weeks, and guys are feeling great. Lean mass is up because of nitrogen from the protein, nitrogen retention in the muscle. Inflammation is down. Insulin is stable. And then at the 6-month mark, their testosterone levels have crashed. Their bodies crashed. Their cortisol's through the roof. And it's because the short-term reset is not a lifestyle, period. You're supposed to do it if you have certain hormonal imbalances. Not supposed to, but you can do it and you have certain imbalances. And then the idea would be that you would add back quality fats and quality carbohydrates, mostly of the plant-based variety, protein, produce kind of combo again, and then add back some of the slower digesting grains based on activity. And so that's that kind of tier up is carnivore shifting back towards more of what we call more of like a paleo would make it more sustainable. And then grains would come in for the most active people as sort of an energy bolus when exercise is needed. And so that's sort of how we think about it, is think of it as a phase, and it's like a metabolic reset. And what ends up happening is people think it's the reset, so then they stay in it and it beats the crap out of them over time.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good to know. That's good to know because I definitely need to change that myself. And it's vital information for a lot of people that have started the carnivore diet and need to know the differences between the short-term effect and long-term effect, and adding a couple of extra nutrition within it as well. So I know we're short on time, but we mentioned that you're expanding out to Tampa, which is exciting. I'm in the Tampa area, so I will definitely be seeing you guys when you are open and going in to say hi and hopefully changing at least my my delicious side of my meals.
There we go.
But is there anything else exciting that's happening and then we could look forward in the future for?
Yeah. So it's like you said, the Tampa office is one of our big things. For you, it's going to be in the Hyde Park area. It's at Tampa Total Wellness, is like a medical facility that's in Hyde Park in downtown. We're going to be in there with a bunch of other practitioners, just having a good old time, really helping people optimize and thrive. So if you want, I can get you connected with our lead RD there. And like you said, she can help you out. She was the dietitian for Pitt football for a while and a couple other things up here. And so she's a very experienced and awesome practitioner. So that's one of our big pieces. Up here in Pittsburgh, we're continuing our operation of saturation. We're expanding up to the Erie area. And so this year is what we're calling our year of saturate. We've kind of built out 10 offices and we really want to just get into those communities, get connected, get collaborative. Because as I've said to you, my vision is dietitian gets surrounded by epic practitioners and then can refer and create a better dynamic. And so planning the office is kind of phase one. Phase two is dietitians connecting with other epic practitioners. And so that'd be the only other thing I'd shamelessly call out is, if you're a passionate practitioner that likes to help people and you have a proactive mindset, Case Specific Nutrition wants to work with you. So please reach out. We are also not just a brick and mortar locations. We are hybrid. We do virtual consulting, and we're able to do that for most states. And so we're happy to support people in that way. And then from there, I will note that I do have a podcast. So if you just love this voice and you want to hear me talk a whole lot, we just finished season 4 of our podcast, CSN3M, which you can put in show notes if you please. Going on with the Make America Healthy Again movement. What's the latest ingredient obsession? What's the client question of the week? And then we'll also be kind of taking a look at some various health questions and conundrums that come up, the misleading marketing out there, all that stuff. So we're going to be shifting from more of an educational topic base to really a month to month, what's the latest and greatest? Because right now, nutrition's confusing and exciting. And when you have really loud voices touting the extremes, I need to personally do a better job of being a loud voice in the middle, screaming moderation, helping them realize that there's reasons why these things work. But if you are living and dying on the hill of an extreme, that is a red flag. You likely don't have a full understanding of how that works in. And that's my role, is just like I explained to you, I'm not anti-carnivore, but I understand how the tool works and what it does in my toolbox. And as a practitioner, that's going to make me much better equipped to help you figure out what's right for you. So we'll continue to make media and resources with that. And obviously, I appreciate you having me on.
Of course, I'm happy to have you on. Like you mentioned, for everyone out there, there's a podcast that Andrew does. Case Specific Nutrition is his company. And so if you guys want to learn anything new about the new trends that are coming on the educational piece, you can always find us here. And hopefully we'll have Andrew back on as well, sharing more of his knowledge. I will drop the link for his podcast down below, as well as his website. Like he said, it's not just brick and mortar. If you guys need help and you're not in the Pennsylvania, North Carolina, or Tampa, Florida locations, reach out to him on his website. There will be help there, and we can all start our fitness journey, starting with nutrition.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you.